Still in NHL entry draft mode, let's look at the last 5 Islanders draft classes and rank them from best to worst. Hit that subscribe button, do not miss a video. Also, go to Twitter, follow @TLOMitch. That's me. Don't miss any breaking information about Islanders prospects I've yet to cover on the channel. So we're looking at the last 5 draft classes from the Islanders and ranking them from best to worst. And those last 5 are 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. And so what we're doing here in terms of ranking them is just looking at the value of the picks they made. Did they get good value? And the more value they gained, the better the picks, or the better the draft class. The worse value, the worse the draft class. And by value here, I'm not going to be like, well, the estimated NHLE was supposed to be this and they got that. And so that's, no, it's going to be more subjective. This is not a math YouTube channel necessarily. I know there's some math involved sometimes with some stats, but this isn't one of those videos. This video is looking at a pick. Was that a good pick based off what we know now or not? That's what we're doing, and that's how we're ranking. Starting with the best, that's 2018. I'm sure you all knew that. The draft class of Oliver Wahlstrom, Noah Dobson, Bodie Wild, Rustin Shakov, Skarek, Pavanka, Jenkins, and Krieger was a pretty good one, specifically for the top. And we owe a big thank you to Travis Hamonic here. That Hamonic trade is where the Islanders find a lot of value in this draft, specifically with Noah Dobson, because that pick does not belong to the Islanders naturally. That is not the Islanders' pick. Their pick was 11 with Oliver Wahlstrom. Fine pick, of course, but number 12 they only had because they made that trade to Calgary. That was Calgary's first round pick. And now, of course, obviously you'd like to have won the second overall pick and draft Andrei Svechnikov, but like, you'll take Noah Dobson, who is, at least in my mind, the 3rd best defenseman drafted in that draft class. And that's a draft class that includes Rasmus Dahlin, Quinn Hughes, Evan Bouchard, and I have Noah Dobson number 3. And you can maybe even argue that he should be number 2 over Quinn Hughes. Not because the production is necessarily there for Dobson, although it kind of is, but Dobson's going to be a more solid two-way guy than Quinn Hughes will ever be. And so that's where the Islanders make up a lot of value, is specifically with Noah Dobson. They lose a bit further on down the draft, but you kind of expect that. So like, you know, take that with a grain of salt, if you will. Whatever you're losing as a 7th round pick, well, like, whatever, you know, it doesn't really count for much necessarily. The loss there are marginal, whereas the gains here with Noah Dobson are substantial. So further on down the draft, obviously in the 2nd round, you've got Bodie Wild. That's not really trending in the right direction, but maybe they can come to some sort of understanding, they being the Islanders and Bodie Wild, and figure something out and get Bodie Wild to where he needs to be or where we think he can be. Remains to be seen. Ishkakov, he's a short player, he's a small player, but that wasn't going to change when they drafted him in the 2nd round, so you can't really be surprised that, you know, he's producing pretty darn well, but he's kind of short. Yeah, that wasn't going to change when you drafted him. The next best draft class for the Islanders is 2021. That's the class of Ratu, Lennox, Berg, Lucas, Malinen, and Mahu. And I said that with a little bit of tone when I said 2021, because you don't expect the most recent draft class to essentially outperform or outvalue ones that have been around 3 years prior to that, at least, right? Because you would expect guys drafted in, let's say, 2019 to start performing well at a higher stage, and thus their value should at least be, to the eyes, higher than guys who've been in the system for 1 year. But with Aatu Räty, man, the Islanders found a ton of value. He should not have fallen as far as he did. Fall? Fine. Sure. Later portion of the 1st round? Okay, that makes sense. It's still quite a bit of a tumble. But to fall all the way to 52? Man, the Islanders found themselves a top 6 center at the NHL level. It really seems for free. And that's huge value. From there in 2021, it's Eetu Luukkas for me. Tristan Lennox, fine. Cameron Berg, also fine. Malinen, okay. Mahu, we'll see. But whatever. They are where they are. Well, I've explained it last time in the last video. But Eetu Luukkas for me is a nice find in the 5th round. He's not going to be a game breaker necessarily at the NHL level, but I can see him definitely hitting the NHL level in some sort of 4th line role. And you'll take that from a 5th round. You'll take that. That's found value. And so that's why this draft is the 2nd best one. And I say that with a tone because, well, it shouldn't with only 1 year under these kids' belts. Number 3 is 2017. That's the draft class of Robin Salo, Ben Mirages, Sebastian Aho, Arnaud Durando, and Logan Cockrell. To be fair, there's not a whole lot there. You don't have a first round pick. You don't even have a fourth round pick. And it took a while for Robin Salo to hit the level he's hitting. But like even then, we're not necessarily sure. It's good. It's certainly good. He seems to be probably a bottom 4 NHL defenseman, which is good. You'll take that from a second round pick. There's no question there. But obviously top 6 center in Aatu Räty ranks higher than bottom 4 defenseman in Robin Salo. And after that, like Sebastian Aho was a good gamble for them to take in the 5th round. It almost worked out, or almost seemed like it worked out in terms of him becoming an NHLer. It's clear he's not, or at best replacement level. So like not necessarily a ton of found value, but some. He hit the NHL level, and that's good. Outside of that, Mirages, I don't know what the hell's going on there. Durando, that's an AHL player, baby. And Logan Cockrell, we'll see. I don't know what's going on. I'm not sure why they haven't yet signed him. So to me, that seems to be the case that where they're just not going to do so, which is still kind of surprising, but it's a 7th round pick. The 4th one here is 2019, and maybe I'll catch a little bit of flack for this, but maybe not. So 2019, you'll remember, is the draft of Simon Holmstrom. That's Holmstrom in the 1st. Then you got Bolduc in round 2, Reese Newkirk round 5, Felix Bibeau 6, and Kolakowski in the 7th. And the reason I'm ranking this lower than 2017 with Robin Salo is that I'm still not sure where Simon Holmstrom is going to end up at the NHL level. I think he'll become an NHLer, but is it a second line player or a third line player? You can say middle 6 then, right? Okay, but like I really want to focus on if it's going to be second or if it's going to be third, because second, you're figuring he's more of an offensive player. Third, you're more of a role player. And when you're selected in the 1st round, you'll take NHL at any level. But when it's differing from an offensive first player or a role player, you'd rather the offensive first player. And I know I said we weren't going to be like, well, we should have taken this guy or this guy instead of him. It's really hard to ignore that with Simon Holmstrom when the next 2 guys are already at the NHL level and Simon Holmstrom is not. He's trending in the right direction, and I'm sure he's going to get some NHL playing time in 22-23, but the other guys are already there, and he's not. And that's something we just can't ignore, mainly because, not just because of those 2 guys doing it, but because the Islanders reached as far as they did to get Simon Holmstrom. If they hadn't reached and he just didn't work out as quickly as them, all right, well, it is what it is. They took an appropriately ranked player where they were drafting. But they didn't do that, right? Again, they reached pretty far for Simon Holmstrom. When you do that, it's because you have supreme confidence that that guy is going to be better than the guys ahead of him, or behind him, if you will. And that doesn't seem to be the case right now. And so that's why it falls back from where Robin Salo is. Because a 2nd round pick, you're going, 2nd round pick's going to be a 2nd round pick. We'll see what happens. But a 1st round pick, you're going, that's going to be a future NHLer for us. We hope, right? We really hope. With 2nd round, you're like, well, we'll see. There's something there, but like we're not entirely confident that he will be an NHLer. From Simon Holmstrom, the next pick in that draft is Samuel Bolduc. And going into the year, there was promise. He had a really good 2021. And so you're going, all right, 21, 22, he's going to push for a roster spot. Maybe he doesn't get it, but he's going to come real damn close. And then he's going to have a big year at the AHL, even if he doesn't. He didn't do the first part. He got injured. But he certainly didn't do the second part. He did not stand out at the AHL level at all. A handful of points, a handful of, really, the impact was barely there. It just was not a good year for Samuel Bolduc, so he took a pretty good step back. And now we're going from, he's definitely going to be in the NHL in 22-23 to being like, I don't know if he's even a good AHLer. So that's not good, right? Your 2nd round pick in 2017, now is going to be an NHLer. In 2019, we're like, we're not even really sure if he belongs at the AHL level. That's not good. And that's why this draft, even though you have a 1st round pick who's looking like he's going to make the NHL, doesn't outperform the 2017 that doesn't even have a 1st round pick. The final draft class here is 2020. That is the worst over the last 5 years. And it's not because they don't have a 1st and because they don't have a 2nd. It's really because of the players they selected where they selected them. You're going, I don't know what you're doing there. It starts off So when you look at the draft class, let's just go through the names. Ljungcrantz in the 3rd, Jeffries in the 4th, Fogh in the 5th, Matthias Rajaniemi in the 6th, and Henrik Tikkanen in the 7th. And when you look at those names, I like the 3 guys in the middle. I really do. Alex Jeffries, great pick. Super intelligent, super fast, good hands. There's something there. Can he be at the NHL level? I think he could eventually work there, but we'll see. From a 4th round pick, you'll take we'll see. 5th round, William Dufour. Epic season at the QMJHL level, was the MVP, so on and so forth. You know the story. Good pick in the 5th round. Does that work itself into the NHL level? Well, there are questions where we're like, well, maybe, but we'll see. You don't expect that from a 5th round necessarily. 6th round, Matthias Rajaniemi. I like this pick. He's very young. He's rounding into form at the pro level where he's been for the last 3 years now. You'll take it. Long, lanky, learning to be a more defensive and aggressive defenseman. You'll take it. But it's the 3rd and 7th round picks where I'm like, what are you doing here? Alexander Ljungcrantz wasn't even on some people's boards, like at all, like through the entire draft. And the Islanders go like yoink in the 3rd round. And he hasn't really stood out. Again, like Simon Holmstrom, if you're reaching for a player, it's because you have a lot of confidence that this guy can be better than the ones you select after him or get selected after him. And that doesn't seem to be the case. He's still young, but he's not necessarily standing out. He's got some wheels, he's got some tools and some skills, but he hasn't even been able to hold down a spot at the SHL level for what was a bad side last year. That's not a good look. And then you have Henrik Tikkanen, who, again, didn't really stand out. You're going to say, well, it's a 7th round pick. The one thing that sticks out to me is that why are you taking an overage goalie in the 7th round and you can only keep him around for 2 years? It's a goalie. They're voodoo, specifically at this age. Look, Henrik Tikkanen didn't think he was going to get drafted, and I'm starting to see why. The Islanders only had him for 2 years in the prospect pool. Why are you taking... I understand he's at the end even of the 7th round, but it just seems like you really kind of threw away a pick. You came to the end, you're like, we'll take a goalie 7th. Yeah, that guy. He's big, we'll see what happens. I don't know. It really seemed like you kind of threw that pick away, and that's why this draft ends poorly. Sure, you're getting good value out of Dufour, you're getting good value out of Jeffries, and some okay value out of Rajaniemi, but you can't these guys don't outperform even Simon Holmstrom. It's not. This is the worst draft class in the 5 years, and it's not even close. Let me know if you agree or not in the comments below, or just fill me in on how you would rank the last 5 draft classes for the Islanders. Thank you for watching. Thank you for following. If you have not subscribed yet, hit that button. And if you have or plan on doing so, thank you, thank you, thank you.